Hey everyone, Steve and Nikki, Cut the Crap Costa Rica coming at you this morning. Just got some things we want to share about driver's licenses and passports this morning. Excellent. So let us know where you're checking in from. Leave a comment down below what state you're coming in from or country even. And just love to hear from you. Get some comments, some feedback. Any questions you have, be sure to send us a message in the chat there. Or if you're not watching this live, go ahead and send us a message and we'll be happy to answer those questions at another time. So hopefully the feed is working well. If you are watching this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up, send us a message in the chat there so we know that everything's working properly, and hopefully we can get that taken care of. So passports and driver's licenses, these are very, very, live videos, you never know.
One motorcycle that we get like every 3 hours.
Yep. So passports and driver's licenses, these are very, very important when coming to Costa Rica. There's some things you need to keep in mind, and some things are changing. Right now we are shooting this video in 2020, and so the world is evolving. Things are happening pretty quickly, and so we want to kind of keep you up to date, but many things are still the same. Some things haven't really changed as far as time frames and being prepared when you come into the country, right?
Yes, exactly. So I don't even know where to begin. Let's start with driver's license. First of all, the borders are open. You can come see me now. Not all states are allowed in. From the United States and some other countries have been allowed in. They just announced last night that actually Wyoming's on I believe it's September 15th. So my daughter can actually come. All of our family is allowed to come see us now.
That was the last holdout. Our other children were all able to come. They were from on Colorado. That was earlier in the list. Now Wyoming's added. Yeah. So that is evolving. But why is it important to have a driver's license? What are some of the things we need to know about for driver's licenses coming to visit Costa Rica and or relocating here?
Well, at first it didn't matter if you had a driver's license. You come to Costa Rica without a driver's license, all you needed was your little blue passport or your passport from your country and to come on in. And now actually you're required to have either a driver's license or an ID from the state that you originated, that you live in.
Yeah, it used to be you could just come in with your passport. Yeah. If I'm going to be using a taxi, collectivo, public transportation, things like that, why do I need a driver's license, right? Identification, I have my passport, that should be sufficient, but that's kind of no longer the case. So that is kind of an update now.
Yeah. So you need a driver's license or your ID. So like people coming from Colorado or New York or those places that are available to come in now, you actually have to present that ID at the time of arrival. The other thing about driver's licenses is that you are allowed to drive in Costa Rica if you come in from another country and you hold a valid driver's license from that country. That gives you permission to drive in this country. So you don't have to go get a Costa Rica driver's license or a special kind of license. Your regular license from your country will actually work for you to be able to drive here. So when we actually decided we were going to take the plunge and pack everything up and head this way, we had a couple of years left on both of our driver's license, but we ended up going down, and I actually had them renewed at that time, which gave us an additional 5 years. And why I did that was because I didn't want to have time frames where I was required to be back in the States to go in and actually renew my license. I believe on Steve's, he was able to, through Colorado, we're able to do them online, but you're only allowed so many times online, and I believe I was out of how many times I could do mine online, and you might have had one more time left, but I didn't want to risk it. And so what we did was we went down and we redid our driver's license, which gave us an additional 5 years for us to be able to travel and have licenses so we could drive when we were doing that. What has happened though actually was we sent Steve back to, well, I ordered yours. In February his expired, and so I had actually ordered yours.
Yeah, so this is an issue that you need to check with your state. Each state has different requirements and regulations as far as being able to renew online. But what she's beginning to speak about here is there is another concern. When you renew online, we get a replacement mailed to us. And so what happened was we don't really there are delays, and we've got some different things you can read in our book about the mail system and trying to get things into the country, and we'll give other updates about that. But trying to have things mailed to the country can be a challenge. And so if we had a driver's license mailed to our home of record, and so in the States, and then it was a matter of getting someone to bring it down.
Yeah.
Now that can potentially pose an issue if you're going to stay here long term. And so what is your issue?
It's now posed an issue on me because I sent him back. We sent him back to the States so he could get his license and bring it back. But for me, I am now sitting here 5 years later, and my license expires October 1st. And what I needed to do was I was able to get online and order my license. However, the minute I ordered my license, it now is expired. The physical license I have is no longer valid through Colorado, because the minute you order it, you get a little piece of paper to print out, and it's good for 4 or 5 days or something like that. And then it's very clear that you have to have that new driver's license in order to drive. The problem is, obviously, with COVID, mail wasn't coming in or out, and flights weren't coming in or out. So in order to get my license to me has become quite a challenge. So at this moment, I am actually not able to drive until I can get that physical license brought down to me.
So you want to make sure you want to make sure before you come, if you're going to be driving in the country, and even if not, you need to have your ID from your state issued ID needs to have at least 6 months left on it, because you never know how long you're going to be in the country or what have you. So that is definitely what we're recommending. Is in some cases it's actually a requirement. So those things are kind of changing, a little bit fluid right now. But right now, why it's extremely important is because that state determines whether or not you're allowed to come and visit or live here, move here as an expat. And so your state issued ID is a requirement, because that is how they're judging whether you are coming from a place with a high infection rate, that has a handle on the pandemic and so forth. So we don't know long term how long that will be. It may be indefinite, but at this point we don't know. It is indefinite, but you need to have a valid state issued ID, or if you're from another country, a country issued ID. It needs to be one that is allowed within their guidelines. So make sure you check with the embassy and for updated list of who is allowed in and those guidelines.
And the requirements, because the requirements to come into the country are kind of crazy right now with COVID testing and stuff. So
now you mentioned that a valid driver's license from another state or country works in this country. That is accurate until you file for residency and stay beyond your 90 days. As long as you are on a 90-day tourist visa, you are okay to use a driver's license from another country, another state. However, once you stay in the country and you pass that tourist visa window, then you're required to go get a Costa Rican driver's license. You can learn all about that in the transportation section of our book, but yes, so your valid driver's license works as long as you're on a tourist visa here in the country.
Or you leave every 90 days to get that stamp. Now, with that being said, right now we've all been on lockdown like the rest of the world. And the people who were here in, I believe, I don't have the date off the top of my head, but I believe it was like December 17th, and they extended all of our visas out. So the 90-day visa runs and border crossings and stuff that we've had to do in the past, we haven't had to do that for over 100 days now. However, here's the catch to that, is that there is a difference between the driver's license law and your visa that you hold, your stamp. So my stamp gives me permission to use my driver's license, so together I'm able to drive. However, they're two different entities. And so right now the Costa Rica government has worked it out, so they have extended both our visas and our driver's licenses until November 18th. However, there was a period of a time for almost 2 or 3 weeks that we were not actually able to drive. Legally, we were not allowed to drive because everybody kept saying, well, those are connected together. Well, the government came back and said, no, they're actually not connected together.
It's two different departments of the government. And so the issue there is they were trying to get a hold of the situation, try and understand what they needed to do, pass new legislation and guidelines and different things. And so in the process of that, the driver's licenses kind of fell by the wayside. They were doing really good at keeping up with the immigration side of things, but not so much on the transportation side. So different transportation, Department of Transportation versus immigration. And so for a while there, like she said, until they figured out what they were doing with the visas and the immigration side, they couldn't write the guidelines for transportation. And so we went without being able to drive for a couple weeks, which is a little bit difficult. We live in a bit of a remote area here. We can't just walk down the road and catch a taxi. We'd have to call someone to come out and get us, and it's kind
very
of a little
expensive taxi to come out and get me just to take me
a little
into
bit
the
more of a
grocery shopping.
process.
So,
But with that, are you ready to transition a little bit?
well, as far as on the driver's licenses and stuff like that, so at this moment it sounds like they've got it all linked out. So I believe if they extend our visas, they'll probably just extend the driver's license. But you need to really make sure that it is covered and that the laws haven't changed, because the laws are changing constantly on that. So those are the biggest things as far as licenses go.
So with that, when you're driving in the country or just about town, we have a correction, an update to our book. Things have changed since we published this. There's a section in there where I talk about we were pulled over, or we were at a checkpoint rather. They have random stops throughout the country to check and make sure that your license plates, your inspection, your Reteve and Marchamo are all up to date and accurate, as well as that you're driving with a valid driver's license. When I presented my passport, because we happened to be on a border run at the time, so I had my actual passport with me, I was instructed by the transito, the traffic officer, to not do that, to leave my passport back at the hotel or wherever we were staying and only bring a photocopy. And that was great because of theft and misplacement, reasons like that. That's why they said that. However, that rule has since changed. They now are requiring that when you drive, you have your actual passport with you with the current valid stamp. In place. And so that is a correction and update that has happened, is that make sure now when you go drive, when you go out and about in town, that you actually have your physical passport with you, not just a photocopy any longer.
Yep. Yeah, that's the big one. The other thing to know when driving, we're in zones. We're in orange zones and yellow zones. Crossing
based
zones
based
off of COVID. Yeah, based off of COVID. So I don't know how long that's going to continue. It's been going on for quite a while, and I believe probably for at least the next year or so. We'll see. But based off COVID, we are actually in zones, which has made it, depending on the day and the numbers of cases and who's in what zone, really hard to drive in this country. We are not allowed at one time where you couldn't even cross zones with your cars, depending on the license plate, the personal vehicles. So what they've actually done is, while the personal vehicles are still on certain driving restrictions, I'm only allowed to drive, there's now 2 days a week that I'm not allowed to drive. At one time there was like 5 or something like that. But right now I'm not allowed to drive on like Tuesdays and Sundays. But if I rent a car, I'm allowed to drive any of those days, because they got a special license or something, exemption. There you go, a special exemption. So if you're looking to come in and you've got a personal vehicle here, but you're going to go do a lot of traveling, you really need to make sure that the zones, you're not crossing zones, and when you do cross those zones, that your license plate numbers are right on the days. Because if you get pulled over, you might as well kiss your car goodbye, because they're going to tow it off. They're going to take your license plate, and that becomes very, very expensive. And not only does it become expensive, but the majority of the time, they're closed down. So people, I have a couple of friends who have not had cars now for almost 3 or 4 months because their cars were taken away from them because they drove on the wrong day.
And it's a process.
It's a process. So just like anything down here, it's a process, and it takes 20 times longer than what it actually should, but that's kind of the process. So
back to passports and things being shut down. We recommend 6 months at least on your passport. I would have years.
A year.
We're in a situation now where the embassy has been closed down, and so reissuance of passports has been halted. And so trying to get your passport renewed, you can apply for emergency passport status and different things like that. But once again, it is still a process. They are on a skeleton crew. There are few people working, and so trying to get through with the current pandemic is a struggle. And it was a struggle anyway. Anytime you deal with a government entity in Costa Rica, it is a process. And so usually it takes much longer than you anticipated. And so you do not want to wait till the last day.
No, don't.
You do not want to get caught without your passport. And because it is essential to be legally in the country, to drive and just to be in the country, you need to make sure you have plenty of time and that your passport is not going to expire while you are here. Also keep in mind that unforeseen circumstances arrive, just like this. There are people who came on vacation, came down to visit. Some of our fans checked in and they said, yeah, I was just coming down for a couple of weeks, a month, and 4 months later, they're still in the country. They're like, well, we just extended because we couldn't go home, or things back home weren't doing well. The numbers in Costa Rica were better. Any number, flights were very limited or extremely expensive. Things happen. And so you want to make sure you have time on your passport, as well as your driver's license, but your passport, because trying to file for a new passport in the country, although it can be done,
and right now, if you need to have it done, you need to contact the embassy. If your passport is about ready to expire, you need to get a hold of the embassy, because while we are in a pandemic, it still doesn't give you the right to let things expire. And that's going to get you in a lot of trouble, and it could get you deported, and it could get you banned out of the country. And trust me, you do not want to be deported, and you don't want to spend some time in a Costa Rica jail. And so the government right now is working really hard to get those people who are expiring. I know I had a friend who went down the other day and got hers redone, and she didn't get 5 years. They gave her a handful of months to push it back out, and she's going to have to then go back and pay again to get that passport done. But at least she's valid to be able to be in this country at this time. So those are really important. And so if you have problems, contact your embassy and get in touch with them if you're sitting here and those are expiring, because I know you had to have 6 months on your passport booking your flight in order to get in this country. However, some people have been here since Christmas time, and they're now stuck, and they were planning on going back to redo those, and they're not able to do it now. So that's something to kind of keep in mind too. So what
absolutely.
else? I'm trying to think anything else. So that's about driver's licenses and passports. And
you can find out all kinds of information about transportation in our book. Also, if you have any questions, direct questions, something that may not be covered, feel free to send us a message, reach out. You can message us on Facebook, send us an email, contact at cutthecrapcostarica.com, message us on our website, any number of ways.
Send me a private message. I love hearing from you guys. I want to know where you're all at. Send me messages and let me know where you're at and what your travel plans for this upcoming year are, now that the world's kind of starting to come out of lockdown and we're able to start traveling around. So
that's pretty much wraps it up for the passports and driver's licenses. That's what this video is pretty much about. We'll come to you with more information, different things about transportation and other things with traveling to Costa Rica. So stay tuned. Make sure you leave us a message with what you'd like to find out about, different information you'd like to know, and just give us your feedback. If you're coming to the country, we'd love to hear about it. And if you have visited, we'd love to hear your favorite parts of the experience as well. So make sure you leave us a comment, give us some feedback. Love to hear from you.
Love to hear from you. Have a great day, guys.